Lego's just about to release their Spider-Verse CMF, and it looks like a fantastic third addition to Marvel's run of minifigure series. While it has potential to be the best one so far, I want to look back at why Series 1 was such a success and at the reasons as to why Series 2 didn't manage to live up to the same standard. Welcome to the Brick Collectibles Show. Tell me which Marvel CMF is your favorite in the comments, and let's get into it. Marvel's first entrance into Lego's minifigure theme occurred in 2021. Previously, the only considerable one was the Marvel Superheroes minifigure collection from 2018, but no official CMF followed until 3 years later. It was not the first established theme to get a minifigure series, and not even the first superhero theme to get a CMF, given how DC received two tie-in Lego Batman movie series in 2017 and 2018, as well as its own dedicated one in 2020. Nonetheless, it was highly anticipated, since it would be Lego's biggest foray into Marvel's Disney Plus shows. The only other two sets were What If's Tony Stark, Sakaara and Iron Man, and Captain Carter and the Hydra Stomper, while this series gave us our first products for Loki, Falcon and the Winter Soldier, and WandaVision, as well as an addition to the previous What If stuff. At 12 figures, it was fairly concise, and its focus on What If was pretty annoying, I'll admit, given it took up almost half of the entire series at 5 minifigs. Notable exclusions in the series included characters like Agatha, John Walker, Mobius, as well as He Who Remains, just to name a few. Other than that though, its focus on 4 shows laid a solid foundation for Lego to work their magic. This starts off with Loki. Even 4 years later, this exact minifigure remains as the only bit of TVA Lego we've ever gotten, and while I'm sure they could have done something more creative with it, I like that we got this specific version of him. The big variant label on the back does make this figure unusable for any regular TVA custom minifig, but as its own package, this is pretty good. Particular highlights include the great Tom Hiddleston face print, the hair, and of course we can't forget his accessories. The mug is cool and all, though the spotlight is 100% on Throg, which is such a funny but random inclusion since it's based off a deleted scene from the show. His counterpart, Sylvie, comes with an almost equally insane accessory as well. The crocodile is obviously meant to portray his variant from the End of Time, even though we are missing the signature helmet which it wears in the show. The actual figure, on the other hand, comes with a beautiful dual molded hair and crown piece, which sits on top of a, sadly, not as brilliant face print. Continuing the trend of ambivalence on this minifigure, the torso is fantastic and matches Sylvie's look from the show to a T, while her legs are completely plain and lack any printing whatsoever. Still a beautiful figure in my opinion, but leg printing as well as a short cape would have benefited this minifigure immensely. Falcon and the Winter Soldier followed up with another 2 figures, the first being James Buchanan Barnes, aka the Winter Soldier. This, just like Sylvie, is a very two-sided minifig. To exemplify, we are looking at a beautiful body here that doesn't just focus on torso and legs, but also includes printing for his metal arm. On the other hand, the face couldn't be more inaccurate to Sebastian Stan. Sure, it's not as bad as the print the 2025 version is sporting, but it's still inferior to both his original Civil War and Infinity War version. But as a last positive, this minifig does include Captain America's updated shield, which is such a cool variant compared to its earlier versions, and I've got no idea why they didn't reuse it for the Brave New World sets. Sam Wilson actually comes with the same piece, and I don't think I can put into words just how good this figure actually is. Not only did we get the new Captain America shield, a brand new molded hair and wing piece, but also arm printing, dual molded legs, and side leg printing. This isn't just the best minifig from the CMF, but also the best Marvel figure of all time in my opinion, and while that bar may not be set particularly high at the moment, there have been real bangers in the theme before. The Scarlet Witch was a figure with that same potential, but was hindered by poor execution. On a positive, we are looking at an incredible set of legs and a brilliant torso with this minifig, which is perfectly accented by dual molded arms. The cape is lovely too, but sadly it all falls apart above the shoulders. Considering this is Wanda grieving her dead boyfriend, controlling an entire town and fighting Agatha, she does look just a little too jolly in my opinion. And the hair, where do I start? The crown piece looks atrocious, especially compared to 2022's Multiverse of Madness version, which is a worse figure in every other regard, by the way, and it really is the part that prevents this figure from being an easy 10 out of 10. A completely different phenomenon is represented by White Vision. This was a figure doomed from the start, given just how wrong the approach was, but it was executed on the highest level. Once again, we've got dual molded legs, side leg printing, arm printing, and immense detailing all around, but sadly, all that effort was misdirected into such an inaccurate figure. The execution is genuinely flawless here, even though the groundwork was misguided from the very start. Monica Rambeau is honestly the most boring out of the bunch. In no way is this figure anything special, except for perhaps the printed arms, but there could have been so many other characters from the show that could have been adapted in the CMF. It becomes even more infuriating because she did get a second minifig in the Hoopty based on the Marvels, where she sports a much more interesting look. As I mentioned, What If was majorly overrepresented in the series in my opinion, but it undoubtedly produced some of the best Marvel figures ever, including this Spider-Man right here. Loosely based on his MCU variant and obviously wearing Doctor Strange's cape, Zombie Hunter Spidey is not only the best comic-passing Spider-Man minifig, but is the best Spidey we've ever gotten, combining detail that even surpasses MCU Spider-Man designs with classic colors. There's so much greatness here that I can't even begin to describe, you just have to take it in for yourself. Pretty much the same goes for Zombie Captain America. Using the Endgame suit as a base, this is a beautiful asymmetrical figure, utilizing dual molded legs, side leg printing and arm printing to create one of the best Cap figures ever. Even the shield was updated, but whether you believe it or not, this is not the last Captain America variant in the CMF. Captain Carter, think of the character what you will, is a brilliant minifig, and I gotta ask, what is it with the series and outstanding Captain America variants? We are looking at a much cleaner suit here than with Zombie Cap, including sleek dual molded legs, sporting printing even on the sides, as well as printed arms, and if you were part of the Lego community in 2021, you probably saw a million upgraded Captain America figures, all using these exact pieces. The face and hair fit the character's look very well too in my opinion, and of course, the shield is beautiful. Following the trend of great figures, T'Challa Star-Lord was a fan favorite figure that was used for so many modded figures as well. Not only does this minifig feature his signature purple jacket, it also comes with a wonderful pair of dual molded legs and a specifically molded helmet hairpiece, which does differ from the usual Star-Lord one. Last and perhaps least, Gamora is the most boring What If character by a mile. Sure, the printing is great, but she doesn't stand out nearly as much as the rest, and the fact that her episode was cut from season 1 of What If, meaning we barely get to see any of her, certainly didn't do this figure any good either. So, with a very well received first series, Lego decided to go forward with a second CMF that was going to be released in 2023. Unlike the first one though, this follow-up series had two potential paths to explore. The first being an expansion of Series 1, adding missing characters, while the second option was to focus on the newly released Marvel Disney Plus shows. Lego decided on the latter, which represented a whole nother issue though. You see, the first CMF had the fortune of tackling the original 4 MCU shows, whereas this series had to work in a whole slew of new ones. The reason the second set felt so disjointed was exactly because of this, because they tried to accommodate Agatha all along, Moon Knight, Werewolf by Night, She-Hulk, Hawkeye, Echo, X-Men 97 and What If. So instead of trying to cram 4 shows into a 12 minifig lineup, Lego was now looking at 8. But on a positive, What If's part was at least shrunken down to only a single figure. Agatha all along got that same treatment, even though this could be seen as nothing more than an addition to WandaVision given how much earlier this figure released than the actual show. In all fairness though, it is a banger minifig. This figure manages to capture Agatha's aesthetic and vibe immaculately with a beautiful purple and blue color scheme. The face and hair obviously influence that look just as much, unlike with Wanda for example, but as a small critique, a cape more akin to something like the Lady of Pains from the D&D CMF would have improved this figure even more. Now I must admit I haven't actually watched the show, but from what I've seen there could have been a couple more minifigs in this lineup as well, but let's also be completely honest here, the show wasn't as popular as some of the others. Same can't be said for Moon Knight. Despite being one of the most beloved characters in the MCU post-Endgame, the show had to settle for only 2 figures here, the first obviously being the man, Moon Knight himself. This is another one of those figures that just surpasses any regular Marvel minifigure by a mile. Despite not being as diverse in color as Sam Wilson's Captain America for example, Lego has used the little color variants to the fullest. They went all out here with dual molded legs, side leg printing, arm printing, a new hood mold and a brand new throwing moon piece. Also, as a last little feature, his alternative face actually reveals the unmasked face of Mark Spector, who thankfully isn't just some random white guy like Poe Dameron before. The second figure slot goes to his other identity superhero persona, being Stephen Grant in the form of Mr. Knight. Mr. Knight is a character design I absolutely adore in the comics and in live action, and Lego did him justice here, adapting his dapper white suit perfectly. Admittedly, it's not the most exciting of figures, especially when put next to a minifig like Moon Knight, but when thinking back to White Vision, a lot of stuff could have gotten messed up here, but I'm happy about this very simple but sleek design. Although, dual molded arms to simulate his rolled up sleeves look could have lifted this figure up even further, but that's just my opinion. A figure I don't have a very strong opinion on is this one, the Werewolf, based on Marvel's Werewolf by Night TV special. I haven't personally watched the special, I heard it was pretty cool though, and I can't deny that this is a pretty nice figure. Getting it in black and white like the character originally appeared on screen would have been cool, but I get why this approach was chosen. It's definitely a weird inclusion here since Werewolf by Night is only very loosely tied into the MCU, so perhaps another show would have benefited from the slot a bit more. She-Hulk, for example, would have done very well with even just 1 figure more. The show obviously wasn't received very well, but this is a banger minifig, and just imagine if we got our first MCU Daredevil minifigure in this series. Nonetheless, this figure is absolutely beautiful, integrating dual molded legs, side leg and arm printing, all the while crushing its predecessor from 2017. She-Hulk is of course a bit of a bigger character, but I'll admit I don't know how you would have conveyed that here, so I'm honestly happy with the route they chose. Hawkeye on the other hand did get 2 figures, even though again a few more slots for characters like Yelena or Kingpin would have really done wonders for this part of the CMF. The figures aren't bad by any means, as you can see with Clint Barton here. Obviously plain legs are smacked to the face, but outside of that this is probably the best Hawkeye figure we've ever gotten, and it's so good to have his classic look done by Lego in such high quality. But let's be honest, as good as Clint's figure is, it's blown out of the water by Hailee Steinfeld's Kate Bishop. This figure is so ridiculously detailed in contrast to the actual outfit that it almost seems like a knockoff figure. Not only do we have an excellent face print that does the character more than justice, we also have one-sided arm printing as well as side leg printing, which flawlessly wraps around to the front of the figure. As I said, this show would definitely have benefited from more figures, but I'm glad these are the 2 they chose. Echo is another one of those figures here that is done dirty by its source material, because on paper this is a brilliant minifig. We've got dual molded arms with additional printing, Lego's relatively rare prosthetic leg piece with side leg printing, as well as an entirely new hair mold. By all rights, this should be one of the most praised minifigures from the series, but because it was based on a show that wasn't even released yet, and when it did come out wasn't received very well, it just disappears among all the other great figures. Would Lego have stuck to already established projects, a mishap like this wouldn't have happened. The only way to prevent this is if the figures you make are already popular anyways, like with X-Men for example. Following Wolverine's Mag a year prior, this series represented Lego's first proper X-Men products for over half a decade, and of course Wolverine had to be there. This is by far the best this character has ever looked, equipping him with dual molded legs and arm printing to really elevate him to the CMF standard. A minifig like this couldn't exist outside of a minifigure series, as we see with his version from the X-Men X-Jet from 2024, which downgraded him significantly. One critique commonly heard about these X-Men figures though was that they used 2 of their 3 slots to make renamed characters, but admittedly this Storm is a brilliant minifigure. Previously we'd only gotten her in a black outfit, so to finally get an official white suit version was a treat. While this figure doesn't have any fancy leg or arm printing, we do get a beautiful K-piece, further supported by the shoulder pads, which helped this minifig match Storm's look from X-Men 97. The one new X-Men member we got though was Beast, and it was about time. While we, once again, are missing arm printing, Lego did grant this figure a new hairpiece. It works very well for his in-universe appearance and is even dual molded to probably incorporate the stripes of black behind his ears. If you took those away, by the way, this would also make for a fantastic Wolverine hairpiece, but let's be real, Lego ain't doing all that. As for the last figure, Goliath is a sole what-if representation here. Based on a story where Lawrence Fishburne becomes Ant-Man or something, this is an interesting but comparably unoriginal figure. Yes, there is arm printing and dual molded legs with side printing, but in the end it's just another Ant-Man suit using the far inferior helmet. This slot could have been given to Moon Knight, Hawkeye or even X-Men 97 and would have probably made for a better choice. So, now you know why Series 2 wasn't as big of a hit as it could have been, and if you want to hear a bit more about Lego Marvel's current struggles, I recommend you check out this video on screen right now about Lego's Soul Fantastic 4 set. Mainly though, I hope you enjoyed, and until next time, goodbye.